Merrilee and Paul David Kennamer Jr., which I'm now going to just say Paul. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, we're excited to be here with
Great to be
you.
here.
So I saw your movie, Eating You Alive, and it was just about a month ago now that it came out nationwide, one day only in theaters, April 5th, and I was awestruck at how well you put together the argument of what you eat can dramatically change your health outcome. Tell us a little bit about the film.
Well, for us, it was a passion project because when we were introduced to the lifestyle by a physician here in our local area, I didn't believe the message of it. I was not a vegan at all. I was a meat eater. I did all this. I was a standard American diet kind of guy. Loved animals, but I didn't realize I didn't get educated. I was not educated on what was happening to the animals. So this was a complete life transformation for me. So while I didn't believe it, I thought, what's it going to hurt? I'll give this a try. So I did. I asked Merrilee. I said, Merrilee, would you give me a try on this because I can't cook? So she said, yes, you would. So we kind of went down that path and actually introduced our whole production team to, we have a production company, and so that's what we do. We're filmmakers. And so the whole team kind of took on this challenge to do this. And we saw so many results. The results were so great that we said, why doesn't everyone know this? And so that became our passion, was to spread this message in the best way that we knew how, which by being filmmakers, obviously we made a documentary. So.
Merrilee Jacobs, so you have been the producer on this film. I'm wondering, what did you learn along the way since you were sort of hooked in by Paul?
Yeah, it was all his fault. And by the way, we made that change overnight, literally. We heard the information, watched Forks Over Knives, actually.
Yes.
The physician said, have you seen Forks Over Knives? You know, the standard bearer. And we had not. So we went and watched it that night. And we said, okay, this is it. The next day, and we've never gone back. So yeah. I was a dairy addict. So if I had known that was my last cheese eating day, I may have pigged out the day before. But not knowing, it's like, oh well, so I'm healthier in spite of it. But along the way, we actually co-produced the film, and I think one of the most impactful things along the way that we learned was really how, and I don't mean to say this to be offending in any way, but really how uneducated our physicians are to the power of nutrition and the power of plant foods. I think they get rudimentary education with regards to nutrition at this basic level. Everybody knows you need to eat more fruits and vegetables, but the true power of plants is something that they were never taught. And I think that became just a really powerful point to us. It's like, oh, wow, the people that we put our health and our lives into their hands, expecting and anticipating that they're going to keep us healthy and give us the information we need, they don't themselves have that information. So it's difficult to teach what you don't know.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up because there's so much that I learned from this film, and I'm already vegan, but even with that, I learned so much with this film. But I think the biggest thing that I learned is how uneducated really our own doctors are about nutrition. And they all say in the film that maybe they have a couple hours one semester. And yet we look to them as experts, and they're often giving quote unquote expert advice on a subject they really know nothing about. And therein, I think, is the linchpin to so much miscommunication, because they then go on to tell the world, oh, whatever, you can have a little bit of this, a little bit of that, it doesn't matter. Not accurate. So.
Yes, absolutely. I think the common thing that I have always heard is moderation, only to find out that one of the physicians in the film, I think Dr. Esselstyn has said this for a long time, but Dr. Columbus Batiste, his father, he felt, lived healthy his whole life. He was a very moderate person, but then he died from diabetes type 2. And literally it was because he was moderate. He could not have the foods that he was having in moderation. It was killing his body. And so, it's really, it just recalibrated my whole way of thinking about a lot of things, but obviously food.
Well, it's funny because when I look at the two of you, you both look like the picture of health.
Well, good. It gets a great makeup job, them, right?
Yeah, that's nice.
Thank you for saying that.
What would turn the tide for you? Because generally speaking, for your age group, you look pretty good.
Well, okay, I'll go back because when I started, I knew I was overweight, but I didn't know just how much I was overweight because I think we kind of have a way of looking at things in this country because of the way we eat. We don't really know what we're supposed to look like. I mean, you kind of go away to college and you put on the freshman 15. And the freshman 15 really is another way of saying you're just eating more meat. You're snacking a lot more. You're doing a lot of junk things when you go to college. So you put on that 15. For me, I didn't have the extra 15 on. I had an extra 45 on. So for me, I dropped 45 pounds in 6 weeks and returned to my high school weight. And that was a massive change for me. But the biggest thing for me was I didn't do it for weight loss. I did it because I had not been able to exercise. I had tendonitis in both elbows, and I had rotator cuff issues. So that's not a big deal compared to cardiovascular disease and things like that. But in my life, it was making things difficult. So it changed overnight. But literally, I think the thing that made me really want to do this was because the fear of the genetics. You know, you're always told genetically you're going to have this, you're going to have that. I was 48 at the time, 47 at the time, whatever I was. And so I just was figuring that I was predetermined. I was going to have cardiovascular disease. I was going to have peripheral neuropathy because my father had a triple bypass. He'd had a heart attack. He'd had a stroke, all these issues. And so I figured I was going to be going down that same path. And I thought, if this is the truth, if Forks Over Knives is what they're telling me is the truth, which I believed it, I said, I've got to do this. So that's what kind of sent us down the path.
Well, I love that you mentioned Forks Over Knives. So there have been a lot of movies lately and some that are still coming out. The Game Changers is about to come out. Of course, Forks Over Knives. And I'm wondering how this movie, Eating You Alive, fits into all those out there. I do believe it brings a different point of view, but I'd love to hear it from you.
I'll take a stab at it, and Merrilee can take it. For us, I think our main message is disease reversal. You can reverse your disease. It's a term that is just not commonly heard mainstream because we don't think of reversing disease. And I think that's the main focus. I mean, obviously, we want to inspire. We want to give the science. But you can take control of your health. You can. And you care more about your health than anyone else. And that's really the message of the film, from my perspective.
Yeah. For us, it was an inspiration. You know, there's so much anxiety and depression and so much bad news out there. And our chronic disease burden has reached epic proportions. And the subject of health is really on everyone's tongues, you know, in one form or fashion, whether it's our chronic disease burden and how it's affecting our economy, whether it's our healthcare crisis and what we're going to do about healthcare and coverage and access and all this kind of thing. So this is the one point that really hits so many people from so many different angles. Every single person alive either is suffering from or has someone that they love that is suffering from a chronic disease, and it's causing unnecessary and preventable death and suffering and grief. And if there's one thing that can prevent that, you know, it's like this is that one thing. And there's so many other fingers to it, obviously, you know, the environment and more compassionate living and that type of thing. But the real focus for us was trying to get people right in the heart of it, literally. And the health seems to be the door that most people are willing to open because they're suffering and they want a way to stop the suffering.
So what was remarkable to me is that people often, when they just hear of this kind of diet, they say, well, that's so extreme. And you think, really? Well, what's more extreme? Cutting out some things that are bad for you. And by the way, opening the door to all the things that are great for you. So my own little side journey, once I cut out meat and dairy, I realized while I was eating meat and dairy, I had such a small life because I kept eating those things that I was addicted to. And I had forgotten about things like sweet potatoes. And you say, like, you roll your eyes, you go like, sweet potatoes, how could those be good? But you know, you give sweet potatoes a try again and you're like, oh my gosh, I've been ignoring sweet potatoes. I mean, I just realized that I had so many more choices as a vegan. because I no longer had closed the door to vegetables. So there's that. But you also think like, okay, some people say it's extreme to cut out meat and dairy. Oh, but you'd rather pay tens of thousands of dollars on health care, on foreign chemicals to your body, statins to lower cholesterol. I mean, you can't exercise anymore. Your sex life has decreased because you're clinging so much to things that are bad for you. You could really change your life around. Not that extreme. I'd much rather give up a couple foods than drug myself.
Well, like Dr. Esselstyn actually says, he's kind of coined the phrase, a lot of people say it's extreme to eat like this, as you're saying. He thinks it's kind of extreme that you'll let someone come and go under the knife and saw your chest open. That's kind of extreme too. So that's, and I agree with him.
Well, you mentioned Dr. Esselstyn, and there are just a bunch of heavy hitters in this film. So there's Samuel L. Jackson and James Cameron, who's become such a voice for veganism. Gotta love that. And then there's Dr. Greger, whom I'm obsessed with. I just think he's fantastic. And Dr. Neil Barnard, another, I'm just a huge fan. So you've got some really heavy hitters in the film. How did you get all of them?
I think that's the thing about this community is when you live this lifestyle, you become so incredibly passionate about it because you know how it's changed you. You know how you feel eating this way, and you want everybody that you see that's suffering to experience the same results. And we haven't met one person who lives this lifestyle who isn't passionate about finding out a way to share it with other people. And we're really honored to be part of this community, now. So when we called, and talked to Dr. Barnard and Dr. Greger and Dr. Esselstyn and Dr. McDougall and Dr. Ornish and the rest of them, it's like, here's our story. And I think that was rather compelling to them, is that we took the journey first and it had experienced such dramatic change and transformation. It's like they could see the passion, I think, in us. And then when we share with them what our vision is for it, it was like, well, of course we want to support that because we see it's just furthering the message and trying to reach more people. So that's what's great about this community. We've had such support from the director and producers of What the Health, and Forks Over Knives and the Plant Pure Nation group and PETA. And it's like all these groups coming together have been so incredibly supportive of the message because we really are just this movement, amassing an army of people that want everybody to feel good and to be healthy, and that's a great cause.
Yeah, it's absolutely wonderful. So you mentioned Dr. Ornish, of course, Dr. McDougall, and then you have a bunch of heavy hitter chefs, which is great too. So Miyoko, who's here in LA, she's got great cheese and she gives some great recipes. Because you're talking about things like cardiac disease, one might think that the average person watching this film would maybe be, let's say, in their 50s. But you also do talk about the environmental impact and the unspeakable cruelty of factory farms that people have turned their back on. They know it, they do know it, but hard to see. Boy, I certainly understand that. And now people are willing to sort of say, we want transparency, and I think it's Dr. Greger who says this, we want transparency in our food system. And so even if the average watcher is maybe older for this film, I think there's a lot for millennials, because I've noticed millennials really vote with their wallet. They want transparency in their food system. They want cruelty-free food, and they care about the environment, and they're sick of chemicals in their water. And so I think there's both generations would enjoy this film.
I believe so. Obviously, we hope so, and I think so. And that for us is obviously what brought us to the message was the health, but the idea of what we're doing to the environment absolutely is impacting, like you said. The millennials are very much into that aspect of it. They're very much into the compassion for animals, and the factory farming is obviously we're hopefully shedding a little bit of light on that. But there's so many great films like Earthlings that do that in a huge way, Food Incorporated. But when you say that about, obviously it's going to appeal to ones that are 50, 60, 70. But we're finding through the interviews with the physicians that this cardiovascular issue and vascular disease is taking place at such a younger age I mean, erectile dysfunctioning is happening to guys a lot younger than 50. And it's amazing how much it's impacting younger people. And they really need this message as well, because we just sort of get into these bad habits in our families of eating a certain way, particularly being from the South, where I'm from Alabama. And it's just this thing that continues to go on in the same cycle. So somebody has to break that. And I think we're seeing that take place now. And that's exciting. And as far as young people as well, a great reason to eat like this, and we always try to, kind of convey this message, is we're seeing young people spend so much money on trying to do things for their skin because they want to look beautiful. If you want to look beautiful, don't drink dairy. Don't eat dairy products. That's your first problem. Just don't do that. And let's see what happens at that point before we start looking into pharmaceuticals to make these changes. Let's look at it in a natural way and a way that helps us all. So that's a message that we really want to convey.
I think one other point is, and Dr. Furman made this with us in his interview, excuse me, he was talking about how much we love our children. We love our children so much, we want to make sure they're all, and I know this is controversial, but, from a traditional standpoint, they're all vaccinated, they're all healthy, they're all safe. We take them for their well checks. We make sure that, they go through safety training. We teach them in schools how to be prepared for fires and all these natural disasters, and we make sure they're seat belted in, and then we turn around and we serve them chicken nuggets and Diet Coke, and it's like, where's the disconnect? And the problem is that, in past studies that have been done, they're seeing evidences of cardiovascular disease even as early as 15 and 12 years old. So, and it would make perfect sense. We're not connecting the dots. So, while other people who are exhibiting the symptoms already of chronic disease, maybe the general audience that's watching this film, we're really trying to push too that as a young parent, you got to start your kids out right. And this is the best way to teach your children how to eat so that they never have to deal with the chronic disease issues. And that should be a primary importance for all of us, for future generations.
Absolutely.
I love that you make this point because we've been talking so much about cardiac disease, but of course we haven't even touched on type 2 diabetes. And you're seeing that so much in kids. And I think it's human nature. You do what you know. So if you're brought up on bad food, you will carry that with you the rest of your life. If you're brought up on, like, look how great sweet potatoes are, you will carry that with you the rest of your life. So it's a huge gift you can give to your kids. Before we talk about the gift of the Eating You Alive DVD, let me just ask you, what obstacles did you run into when you made this film? Any resistance?
We actually did not run into a lot of resistance. I've got to think. Is anything coming to your mind?
Not really. I think we were kind of flying under the radar.
Yeah, we tried to. And honestly, we did more trying to tell the story of the change that can happen in people's lives. Rather, I think What the Health did a great job of really kind of rattling the cages of what needed to be done. I love their story. I love that angle. And that played a big part, honestly, for me, because it didn't make sense to me that the medical community was not interested in me being healthy. Let me take that back. I don't want to say that in the wrong way. I think physicians care, but the medical industry does not necessarily care about us being healthy because there's not money in that. So I think that's when it began to kind of click for me that it's a completely money-driven thing, that aspect of it. And I think What the Health really addressed that well. But we didn't do so much of that, so we didn't deal with a lot of that controversy in the way that they would have.
So I see on your website that people can throw screening parties. Tell me a little bit about this and how we can get the film, because it's not in theaters, I think. So you have to get the DVD. So tell us, how do we do it?
Yes, we're really excited because the DVD, Blu-rays, or digital downloads are now available for sale off our website. So you can just go to our website to purchase.
EatingYouAlive.com.
Live.com, absolutely. And then you can also sign up there. People can sign up there to host private screenings. So whether it's your, meetup, your vegan meetup group, or it's a Plant Pure pod, or it's your church or your school or at the public library, they can go in and at eatingyoualive.com, sign up there to host a screening, and we'll work with them and make sure they have all the assets they need to promote it in their communities and just really help, spread the message. I think it was designed to be a tool for people to use in their communities to help introduce the concept of whole plant foods and their healing properties do all of those around them in a very a non-invasive way, a very engaging way, an inspirational way. My mom said you always draw more flies with honey rather than vinegar. And not that I'm trying to draw flies by any stretch, but people are more accepting of the message, I think, in this manner, in this platform, to hear stories of inspiration rather than being beat over the head, is a much more compelling way to invite somebody to make a change. And that's what it was designed to do, is just to be a tool, another tool in the tool chest to help get us further down this road.
And I think there are so many inspirational stories in this film. It's amazing how so many people turned their lives around simply with plant food in like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So really fast, so for those who need like immediate gratification, I mean, it's pretty quick. You can see your cholesterol just plummet. So I highly recommend to everyone to go to eatingyoualive.com. and you can order the DVD from there. Before I let you go, I have my handy dandy, quick, one sentence off the top of your head kind of questions. Are you ready?
I think so.
Maybe. Oh.
Okay. What thing are we always going to find in your fridge? Go.
Garlicky kale.
Almond milk or soy milk?
Woohoo! Okay. What is your go-to meal when you're super busy and you just make it at home, like it's the thing you have once a week, you know how to make it, lickety-split, it's always good?
Beans and rice.
And mine's lentil soup and homemade hummus.
You make homemade hummus lickety-split?
Oh, yeah. Everything goes in the Vitamix and you spin it up. It's really fast. It's my kid's favorite, so.
She's a great cook.
Favorite junk food? And if you don't have any junk food, then favorite snack?
Favorite snack is cotton candy grapes.
Air popped popcorn with nutritional yeast.
With nutritional yeast? Ooh, okay. So air pop popcorn, so you don't have any olive oil on it?
No.
Correct.
Ooh, okay, I'll try that. I usually do air pop popcorn with extra virgin olive oil, but I'll switch over to nutritional yeast. Okay, do you have any pets? And if so, do you think they're any different than farm animals?
I do have a pet. I have a 16-pound Havanese, and he's adorable. But I actually, after watching, and my mom's a big lover of Facebook videos about animals, and so she's always sending me links, And then we've had some experiences with farm animals and things. Actually, in Las Vegas, we were traveling through and went to an animal sanctuary, and there was a turkey there that would not leave us alone. He just wanted to be really close to us and wanted us to pet him. And so those experiences really teach you. I don't really think they're bigger. Some of them are bigger, but other than that, they're really no different than my dog.
I don't currently have a pet, and I absolutely have become educated to find that all animals, they want love. They want to be loved, and they want to love. And
Sounds
yeah.
Sounds exactly like humans.
Exactly.
What do you wish you knew 10 years ago that you know now?
Oh, this may be a little controversial. For me, it's, and I don't mean this rude, but I wish that I had understood that the medical industry was there to make a profit, not to see to it that I was in good health. I wished I'd known that.
Shocking, right? But it's a huge revelation.
Yeah, it was.
And I just wish I'd known about this whole way of eating and had been exposed to it and accepted it 10 years ago, because then I wouldn't have had to go through, weight loss and buying different sizes of clothing.
Right. When I think of all the clothes I've bought yes, I totally see where you're coming from. Do you feel that you know what your purpose is in life? And if so, what is it?
I do. I mean, I think I have found that my purpose is to inspire people to take their health into their own hands and to be healthier, live longer, be happier, feel better, all those things.
And I feel the same. I think my purpose is just wherever I go to touch a life in a way that has a positive impact, and in whatever way that may be, and to serve other people in that way.
Last question. So you can make this a prediction for tomorrow or a prediction for 50 years, and it can be about food or anything else. What are your predictions for the future?
I think that we're already seeing it. The veganism and eating more plants, and things are already changing. And I just see us going so much more in that direction. I see us figuring out and it becoming known to the masses that this is the only way we can sustain ourselves. That's what I see.
I see it where more and more restaurants are going to be popping up, and meat and dairy are going to be the things that are almost non-existent on the menu. It's going to be more plants.
And do you have a time frame for that?
Well, we're already seeing that happen, but I would say, I don't know, 10 years from now, maybe it'll take that long. You know, people are really hard when it comes to letting go of the things that they love and have become addicted to. So following those addiction patterns and breaking those addictions, it's just going to take a little bit of time, but I think we're getting there.
I love it. EatingYouAlive.com. That's where everybody can get the buy it now, buy it for your friends, throw a screening party, bring it to your community. Wonderful Merrilee Jacobs and Paul David Kennamer Jr. Thank you for being with me today.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much for having us,
We've
Elizabeth.
really enjoyed it.